So the cool part about today's class is the introduction of the 80-20 principle. And so rather than going through the entire material line by line, I highlighted some of the key points that I want to reference. Also, what I want to do is demonstrate an experience in front of all of you to kind of show you or demonstrate how one can get to focus on their big priorities first before they get to something else. So today's class is part of the 6 personal perspectives. It's a core curriculum that's developed by KWRI and Gary Keller, and it starts with an intro as well as intro and commitment to self-mastery. Sorry, I had a brain freeze there for a second. So again, as more people can start, just tell me, give me an idea, and we're going to be able to just keep on going. It's 12:03. Oh no. Vinny, I'm going to call on you since you're on the virtual world. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Okay. So the 6th personal perspective is about different parts of our journey to develop a best version of ourselves. The first step in the journey of the 6th personal perspective is to commit to self-mastery. And the idea there is that you do know what you don't know, and now you're going to go out and learn what you need to know to become who you want to become. The next step, once you know what you want and you set up your goals around it, is to actually commit to operating with an 80-20 principle, which we're going to delve in deeper to it throughout today's session. And hopefully the demonstration will illustrate the point clearly, and it will hit home for a lot of us. Next is Janeska's class, and it's the idea of moving from E to P. E means that I'm an entrepreneur and I can figure stuff out on the go. And P stands for being purposeful and truly driving purpose in what you do every day to be able to drive the results that you're looking for. That's what E to P means. The next class is becoming a learning base. Learning base means that you know, the more you read and the more or someone has done it before you, right? And so you just go learn what that individual has done and then apply it to your business, and you see exponential growth. After that is removing limiting belief. As you know, most successful people struggle. And that's perhaps what most people don't talk about until you get to the finish line, because you don't want to create cracks in your foundation. So you pretend, not realizing that we all are struggling with our own limiting beliefs. I was raised by parents. They were raised by parents, and whatever nonsense they gave my parents and my parents gave me, and I would give, hopefully I could remove some of the nonsense and give better nonsense to my child, and vice, right? And the story continues on. So a lot of what we think and a lot of what we believe is actually was given to us by our own parents and or people around us to kind of shape how we think of who we are as individual. And you need to know your limiting beliefs in order for you to actually overcome them. And it's a real challenge, right? So you need to, but you just need to know about them so you're able to move on from there. Once you move from removing limiting beliefs, that's with Vinny. And then Steve Paternak will talk about the idea of being accountable, because that's in the end, like you can work on you, but till you commit to your goal and be willing to be accountable to somebody else, and yourself, change will never happen, right? Good is the enemy of great. And so how do you move from just being average to going out of that zone and saying, you know what, I'm okay to mess up my life in order for me to move to the next level, right? So that's what the 6 personal perspective. I think it's one of our core curriculums that truly focuses on the individual programming and breaking through those programming than any other course. Everything else becomes mechanical, how to do stuff. This is the only course that focuses on you. And for that, I'm very grateful to be an instructor following a dance class yesterday and focusing on an 80-20 principle. So what is 80-20 principle? I'm calling out the audience. What do you believe is the 80-20 principle?
20% of your work will yield you 80% of the results.
So who, Mark, right? So,
yep.
By the way, I'm going to call you. I spoke with John, so I'm going to call you after.
He texted me.
Awesome.
Me. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad. So the idea is that, 80% of the results that you get will only come from 20% of the activities that you do, that you produce. So if we go to slide 2, here it talks about when you commit to self-mastery and have set goals for tasks and topics you want to master, the 80-20 principle then become the focus in your effort to be able to attain those goals, right? What I want to read now is, more results for your activities. And this in 1940s, there's a quality control manager, and his name is Dr. Joseph Duran, documented a life-changing universal principle that he called the vital few and the trivial many. The idea was that a relatively small percentage of your effort leads to the vast majority of your result. And he attributed some of the findings to the statistical work for the Italian economist Alfredo Pareto, who had observed that 80% of the wealth in his country was owned by 20% of the population. That's the core. That's what it comes from. The rule later on became the Pareto law and not the Duran law. So that's the core principle of the 80-20 principle. That's where it came from. And the idea that 20% of your actions lead to 80% of your results might be one of the most powerful principles you can apply to your life. And it's about getting the most from your time and effort, and it's about maximizing results and having focus. And that's what it's all about. The idea here is that you identify what is really important, everything else that you do every day, and focus on that first, because it's going to yield you the exponential growth, or as we call them, quantum leaps, right? You always see this, we're all equal in the end, right? But some of us achieve, right? We're all equal in the sense of time. We all start with the exact amount of time. I have 24 hours, Lisa has 24 hours, Mark has 24 hours, and so on. Yet some of us produce more than those hours than others. And the question is why, right? Why does one produce more than the others? Well, the answer obviously is in the 80-20 principle. Question now becomes, how do you identify the 20, right? Which one is 20, which one is 80? And that's what it becomes very challenging. So we're going to walk through the exercise of demonstrating the idea of why, how you can go through the ideas of prioritizing. Does that make sense? Awesome. So can you move the camera now? All right. So give me a second. So what I'm about to do now is do a demonstration of big rocks come first. That's the exercise. So what Jadani has. Can you see me just fine? Vinny, I'm looking at you. You're the only one that's going to be talking to me.
Yes, yeah, we see you.
Awesome. So what I have here is 2 jars, right? And what I have, can you see the rocks in my hand, Vinny?
Yes.
Awesome. Also see pebbles. You also see sand. I'll use this H2O.
It's like a science, it's like a science project.
It is a science, but I think it illustrates. So here's the point, Vinny. So the idea is like everything that you see, the rocks, the pebbles, the sand, and the H2O, all represent priorities in our lives, right? Would you agree with that, Vinny? So I'm going to make that assumption, by the way, right? So the assumption is all four of them are priorities.
Yes.
Some have more or higher priorities. Some have lesser priorities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You good, Vinny?
Yep.
Hey guys, this is Jamal Hadi, operating partner for Keller Williams Realty NYC Group. If you like these videos, please subscribe below. And the jars represent our lives, or my life, right? So one is my life figuring stuff out. The other one is my life, have no clue what I'm doing, right? Being an entrepreneur, being purposeful. Make sense, Vinny?
Yes.
So, and I'm gonna ask Jadani not to step in and help me with this exercise. This is more than welcome to come, but I don't want to put you on the spot. Okay, so Jadani has already agreed to do this exercise with me. So I have asked Jadani, right, to go ahead and do the following. In the first jar, I want him to start with, what do I start with? Water or pebbles? The water. So if all of these are equal priorities, right? And I have decided to start with water or H2O as the first task that I'm going to take on in the morning, right? You got to fill it to the top, to the brim. Can you see the jar, Vinny?
Yep. It's filled with water. Filled with water to the top.
I'm sorry?
It said it's filled with water to the top, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I want Jadani to add pebbles. Is that possible to add pebbles, by the way? Is it possible, Vinny, to add pebbles to this?
Yes.
So watch what's going to happen, right? He filled the jar to the brim. He's going to now start to add pebbles. What happened now, Vinny?
It looks like the water's overflowing a little bit.
It is. Can't do anymore. Got it?
Yep.
So if Jadani had picked water or H2O as the first priority to tackle, he got that task done, but he can't get anything else done. You see that? You good, Vinny?
Yep.
So now I need some more water. Please, we use all our water. Water is such a pressure commodity. So what I want Jadani now to do, I'm going to give him the order to follow. You good with that? And the order is, I want him to start with rocks first, follow it with pebbles, follow it with sand, then follow it with water. Got it? Vinny, you good with me?
Yep. I'm with you.
So stay with me because I'm trying to illustrate the point of 80-20 principle. Got it? So
that's true. But I'm gonna tell you, then it's not.
Michelle, can you help me keep people muted?
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Vinny. So now he did the rocks, right? And we're gonna start to reference this rocks experience as the big rocks, right? So Vinny, how much are we good with the pebbles now, Vinny?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the rocks first, we followed it with the pebbles. Now he's gonna do sand. Got it?
Yep.
And by the way, the question in the exercise, if we had more people in person, so if Lisa was in the audience and then Winnie Lisa's in here, we would ask Lisa, can you add more sand? Can you add more sand, Lisa?
Just a little.
Okay, just a little. Keep going. Can you add more sand, Lisa?
Just a little.
Just a little. How are we doing, Vinny?
Good.
Can you add more sand, Vinny?
I don't think so. I think he's like maxed out.
Is the jar now full?
Yes,
Okay. Can you add water now?
probably not. Can he? I don't know.
Okay. I'm gonna use my water. That was easy before. Got it? I like Vinny, your eyes are in the camera like that. Just adding water now. What do you think, Vinny? Can you keep going?
I don't think so, right? I can't really see, but it looks like it's at the top.
It's still going.
Okay.
Nothing has spelled so far.
Okay.
If the time, more the sand will absorb water. It's absorbing, but just very slowly. What do you think so far, guys? This jar is gonna be garbage by the time we're done. So, pretty good. I think you get the point, Vinny.
Yes.
So my day starts, and the first thing I do is I start working on the least, the one that has the least value, right? And when I do that, then I have room to focus on my big rocks on the first exercise. Vinny. If I start with H2O and pebbles, then I have room to focus on my big rocks. The answer is no. Right? The answer is no. But when I made sure that my priorities are right from the get-go, I was able to do a lot more in the jar that represents one's life, right? Than on the first exercise, not learning which one is more important than the other. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
I think the exercise is very powerful, because typically if we had an audience here that was with us in class, we would go through the reading portion of it. So rather than doing that, we wanted to demonstrate the actual exercise to show you exactly the difference between prioritizing versus not prioritizing. And also understanding that the big rocks representing the highest priorities, when tackled first, they will fit in the jar. Right? Where the other exercise you've done, you stopped at pebbles, right? You do sand and you're not gonna have any more room for rocks. Just you run at full capacity at a very short period of time. Make sense? Yeah.
Jamal,
Yes, sir.
just so I can help everybody else understand it, because I don't know if everybody will grasp the concept. Can you give examples of what would be a big rock versus, sand or water in the real estate business? Like, obviously lead generation, etc., versus what water would be.
So, thank you for that, Mark. Actually, the whole class is about going through answering that exact same question. So thank you for that. And by the way, I want all of us to be engaged in this, because it's important that we all participate to truly understand. Now, some of us are very fortunate or lucky enough to figure out what is important and what isn't, right? I want us to go through the exercise of thinking about it, so understanding why focusing on the highest priorities first is really matters. So I think I'm done with the exercise. So and the point here is that what Joanne and Pareto have proven that in the real world of success and results, things are never equal. So how does a success? So the question is, how does a successful person turn a to-do list into a success list? That's what that is, right? The list that I gave to Giordani to follow is called a success list, right? I told him which priority comes before the other. In theory, what I did to Giordani for the demonstration sake is I gave him the priorities based on high to low. So the question here, how do you now create a list, and from within your list of to-dos, right, you start to pick on what is a success list versus what is a to-do list. Got it? So I think I go to the next one. The next slide also talks about, you know, the effort we did. When we focus on the 20% that matters, we get 80% of the result. We did that. Let's just go on to the next one. Okay, commit to the 80-20 principle, the Pareto. We did that as well. Then we go through some. So yeah, go back to that one. So it is the concept here, right? So identifying your 20% and then go even smaller by finding the vital few of the vital few. Because believe it or not, even in the highest priorities, as you break them down, there are priorities within your high priorities that take a higher priority. And those are the ones that can be done only by you as an individual and can't be delegated. Does that make sense? So,
yes.
So go to page 7. Okay. So how many of you guys read this book? Man, it's such a hard class to teach when it's a class of one, at least in person. How many? So how many people are in attendance? So 15 people in attendance. I only got one that said I read the book, and I read the book too. So in page, who? Okay, 2. So in page 15, it focuses on live. Yep. It talks about productivity isn't about being a workhorse, keeping busy, or burning the midnight oil. It's more about priorities, planning, and fiercely protecting your time. So as we start to talk about what is important and what is not, all the items that meet your success list as priorities, which one is more of a priority than the other, what you need to start focusing on is how to actually build a bunker for yourself to protect your time to be able to deliver the results or the production that you're looking for. So the focus ultimately is going to end up being on time blocking. So in here, it talks about much to do about nothing. While to-do lists serve as a useful collection of our best intentions, they also tyrannize us with trivial and important stuff that we feel obligated to get done. So if you start to focus on the stuff that is not important for you every day, it's going to give you a sense of accomplishments, a sense of closure, but in actuality, it doesn't produce the highest possible results. And that's the point behind it, because we're going to always debate that individuals that focus and get stuff done, even if they mess up their priorities, they're still achieving great results. But remember, even in results, there are degrees of results. So I can have an hour conversation with one individual and it can produce one result, and I can have 20 conversations in the same hour with 20 different people, and I can produce completely different results. It's the same hour, right? Just change from one conversation with individual for an hour to changing the conversation to whatever the 60 minutes divided by 20 conversations. What is that? 60 divided by 20. 60 divided by 20.
3.
3.
3, right? So now I make every thank you those that are paying attention. I really appreciate you. It will be 3-minute conversations for the hour per person to yield me 20 conversations if it's possible, of course, and I can produce completely different results. Same hour, success on the first one, because I got that person to work with me, hire me, and whatever, pluses and positives that comes out of that conversation. But in my 20 conversations, because of the diversifications and the quantity of it, I was able to produce greater quality, right? So that's the point behind it. So instead of a to-do list, as I mentioned, always convert it to a success list. And we're gonna go to this exercise actually of going through it as Mark had suggested. So let's do this, Mark, right? Mark, what I'm gonna ask for everyone in attendance, right? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to participate with me, right? For the sake of this exercise, or else it's just not gonna hit home, right? I've demonstrated the example of giving you the rocks as the biggest priority, and Mark asked, how do you know in actuality in real estate, how do you know that rocks were the main, right? The highest priority, and everything else should have taken second position. So what I'm asking you to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're testing if you are working your 20 on a daily basis. Make sense, Mark?
Yes, sir.
So Mark, I ask you if Adon's class yesterday talks about setting goals, right?
Mhm.
So, and I know you're a guy that's driven by a goal.
Correct.
So again, you don't have to shout it out, by the way. Mark is just the model for the conversation, right? So what is your goal? So write that down, right?
Yeah.
Write down your goal. It doesn't matter to me, right? I'm going to give you an example 411 when we're done with this exercise. So that way you can see exactly what we're talking about once we have a clearly defined goal and truly focusing your daily activities to produce the big goal. Got it? So write down your goal. And by the way, start with a clean piece of paper. And I also want you to do this either in personal life and or business, preferably business, so you truly understand the exercise as we move forward. So now that you have the goal, list as many items that you can do to make a to-do list to achieve that goal. Got it? Yep, just your to-do list. Write down your to-do list. It's gonna be a tough one, especially when I have no one around me. I'm skipping the marathon.
Jamal. This is your personal or business you're asking right now?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, Vinny, for the sake of this exercise. I think objectively speaking, I would make it business so that we can use a real example as it relates to business, right?
Okay.
But it could be personal if someone wants to go personal. So who wants to share to demonstrate to the rest of us? Who wants to share so we can demonstrate to everyone what it means to create a success list as a out of a to-do list?
I'm driving right now. I'm trying to find parking. Otherwise, I would.
Oh man, Mark,
do.
could have been a great example.
Jamal, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll share my goal for a business.
Yep.
Sell 12 homes in a year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. So now you have that as a goal, right? Now,
Yeah.
Maxine, tell me to sell 12 homes, what's in your to-do list? And again, we're not talking success list, just to-do list.
Constantly adding people to my database,
Okay. Constantly adding people to my database. One, give me another one.
having 10 conversations a day,
So having 10 conversations a day, okay? So 10 meaningful conversations a day.
real
adding
estate
20 people.
conversations,
What happened?
10 real estate conversations a day.
Awesome. Yep.
And marketing past sales that I've had.
Okay, so marketing past sales. What else? Oh, by the way, the list, Maxine, right? And for the sake of this exercise, if I'm asking you for a to-do list, you would agree that you probably would have a minimum 20 to 25 items in it, right? Maybe
Right.
more. Maybe more, right? Maybe more. It can be doing open housing, right? It can be having one listing presentation, one buyer consultation on a weekly basis,
week.
right? It can
Correct.
be, prepping for my buyer consultation presentation and or creating my marketing pieces for my listing presentation. You agree with that?
Yes.
The list can go on with, and that's, and so what tends to happen is that you end up having a list that is perhaps overwhelming, right? And
Yeah.
when you have a large list, and think about it, as real estate professionals, our list is overwhelming, right? That's why sometimes it's just easier to operate from an E perspective rather than a P perspective. I don't have to be purposeful. I'll just be winging it, right? I'll just go out and do what I need to do because I'm just good at it that way. And it's overwhelming to focus on the actual success list. So now, Maxine, out of your list of 20, whatever items that you have, just do me a favor and circle all the items that will take a higher priority for you to get to the 12 closings for the year. And I hope, and by the way, Maxine is my role play partner in this. I'm asking each one of you to do the same, right? So if you were prepared to go through the class and you're sitting in an office somewhere, then you would have had the chance to create a to-do list out of the goal that you set for yourself. And then within that list that connects to the goal, we would be asking you to start to circle certain items on that list that take higher priorities than the others. And that's what Mark was talking about, right? Eventually, we can talk about, oh, you know what? The largest priority is to focus on lead gen, right? It's to lead gen 3 hours a day. But it goes much greater than that because what do you do there in those 3 hours? 3 hours is the time that is blocked, there's allotted for you to sit down and build the business toward getting you closer to 12 homes, right? But it doesn't list the items within it. You have to go in during that time and focus on priority one before you do anything else, right? So, and the exercise here is about you really thinking about which one in your to-do list can give you the greatest return on the time allotted for the activity. And that's the key, right? It's all equal. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and so on, Elon Musk, all start with the exact same time as everybody else. Yet they manage to actually succeed at a super high level because they're really mastered or are in the mastery of figuring out what are the biggest priorities that they need to focus on, that it doesn't move away from them and everything else takes second position. Got it? And that, perhaps that's such a broad and large example, but I can also talk about just our own small little world. Why does an individual like Johan achieve X, right? Versus a person like Christine, as a name that doesn't exist in our world, only produce Y, right? Because Johan truly understands, and he's not there yet. Remember, he's in the journey. I'm using him as an example. He's in the journey of becoming better and understanding which one are his biggest rocks and which ones are his smaller rocks, the pebbles. And he focuses on the big rocks first. Maybe his rocks are not as big. They're smaller than the biggest rocks, but yet bigger than the pebbles, right? And they can produce greater results. Versus somebody else is operating from the sake of busyness, right? I just show up, and man, I come to work and I time block, and I'm not doing anything else at 11 o'clock. But what I do in that 11 o'clock, I'm on schedule to call 20 people, but yet I only had 3 conversations during the 3 hours, right? Still did something, but not equal to the person that had perhaps 20 conversation, and of course, much more or much better than the individual that had no conversations. You see what I'm saying? All equal. Time, one individual produced the greatest return, one produced great results, one produced no results. So now that you have Maxine a to-do list, let's now create a success list by circling only the tasks from the to-do list that have the most impact on your goal. You got it? So we asked you to circle. So which one takes the highest priority?
The first one would be having 10 real estate conversations a day.
Okay, awesome. Why is that the most?
Because I've learned that no matter how much marketing I do, the only way that real results show up is through active lead generation.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Maxine. And I would also add, because you can measure it, right? I can quantify. I can say I truly had 10 conversations today with someone around real estate. Thank you for that. Anybody? What else to the rest of us in the audience? What else Maxine could circle from a to-do list to a success list? Don't all jump at once.
What else on her list?
Yeah, she said 10 conversations, right? 10, and I agree with that. You measure it, right? I can genuinely say I did it or not did it, right? It's like there's no gray area in your 10 conversations every day. That takes priority. So it's lead gen time block, 10 conversations during the time of 3 hours, and I now know that I actually moved toward my goal of getting 12 closings for the year, or 120 closings for the year, whatever the number is. We'll make $300,000 a year in GCI. What else can Maxine circle in her to-do list that can get her closer to her success list, and also even gets her even closer to her success list? Am I clear, Vinny?
Yes, sir.
I'll say one that doesn't have any gray. Go on the listing presentation every week or every day, right? Is there gray in that, Vinny?
No.
If I'm measuring for true results, then I can measure for, I'm going to go on 2 listing appointments every week. I'm going to go on 4 listing appointments every week. I'm going to go on 1 listing appointments every day, right? So if I had a long list of stuff to do, nothing else gets done, Vinny, till I go on what?
Listing appointments.
My listing appointment, which means that I'm going to actually stay in lead gen mode till when, Vinny?
Until you get the appointments that you need.
To go on it, right?
Right? Yeah.
100%. And that's the whole point of this exercise. When you start to truly understand what are your biggest rocks. Now, of course, I can say, well, one listing appointment every week is hard, Jamal, to those that don't go on 1 listing appointment every week. And to those individuals that go on multiple listing appointments every week. I can say, go on deliver a listing presentation in the office, Vinny, in the office every day, right? How cool is that? As a goal is to say, I'm going to deliver one listing presentation to a seller every day. Is that possible, Vinny?
Yes.
Is it possible to have a seller come to your office to sign paperwork with you?
Yes.
Yes, right? So if you start to measure that as a goal, then nothing else matters till that gets done, right? Everything else can be done by somebody else. By the way, we're talking in teaching the 80-20 principle, it doesn't mean that you have to ignore the bottom 80, is that you don't get to it till you have till you finish what's in your 20. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and to take it deeper, sometimes I think people, because they are the heavier rocks, like shy away from that and focus on the other stuff where they're not the heavy rocks, and that can cause a problem sometimes. You know what I mean? Out of fear.
Listen, people operate from all different perspectives, right? I operate from again, we're using here. This is learning for learning.
Right.
sake.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right?
I'm not putting anybody down for doing it. I'm just saying some things that they need to outgrow.
No, you're right, but that's why removing limits and belief is going to come in very handy, right?
Right.
Because think about it, like if I wake up every day with so many hours in a day, right? When I wake up every day, what else is doing, what within me is also refreshed? Thank you, Lisa. My energy, right? My energy. Here's the cool part about this. I can go to bed with zero energy, beat up, tired, like I'm out. I'm out cold, right? And I can wake up the next day if I have a good night's sleep, right? Because, perhaps I meditated, perhaps I had I don't know, a chamomile cup of tea or a glass of wine, whatever stuff that, calms your nerves, you pray, you whatever the stuff that you do to wind you down, and you go and have a good night's sleep, and you wake up the next day, you got 24 hours, or in this case, hopefully, 16 potential working hours, right? That you can, or 16 purposeful hours. I don't want to call them working hours. I want to call them 16 purposeful hours, right? Because 8 you sleep, 16 you're up. They're purposeful, right? Some of it is family, some of it is friends, some of it is work, some of it is family work, some of it is sport, some of it, whatever the stuff is, right? Sports, health, eating. So you got 16 purposeful hours. But yet I wake up every day with 16 hours and peak performance. If I'm home. Do you agree with that, Vinny?
Yep.
And I look at my life, Vinny, as a phone. You see my phone?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a phone and I've charged it and it slept really well the night before, and I did everything for my phone to make sure that it's going to work in the morning, and I turn it on in the morning. How much battery life do I have, Vinny?
100.
100. So I wake up with 100% battery mode, right? Then I have one conversation with one person and I drained 60% of my phone, right? Because I was busy, like, whatever stuff that I did, right? How much now time is left for me to take care of the rest of the priorities? That can be perhaps even more important than the first priority that I wasted an hour and a half on. Not enough. Not enough. Now, here's another one too, Vinny. Am I the same individual when I'm operating from my peak performance versus operating from getting off a bad conversation or a conversation that depleted all my energy?
Nope. That's why people like to focus on their stuff early. Like some people like to work out in the morning or do the heavy stuff in the morning, because that's when you're at your most energy.
Yeah, and that's the key right there, is that, and by the way, so I happen to be a morning person. I personally, I protect my time till 11 o'clock. That's what I do, because most of my work is done between 8 a.m. and 8 and 11 a.m. So if I don't protect that time and get focus on my highest priorities, once 11:05 hits, guess what happens? I'm running, right? it's like sometimes the 80% is going to pull you away from the 20 because it has to, it just has to, right? If my phone is constantly ringing, then guess what I need to do? I got to pick it up, right? Unless I start to know which one is going to get me closer to my goal and which one is not going to. How we doing, Vinny?
Good.
So in the exercise, it says this: what's the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? I'm gonna read the question again, because that's the question that we all have to always answer every day as we focus on our 80-20. Or in other words, when we're focusing on our 20%, that's going to yield the greatest results. The question is as follows: what's the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? So whenever you start your day, that's the question you want to be answering every day as you start to focus on your highest priorities first. And if you don't question it, then you're going to find yourself depleting all your energy on priorities that could be delegated to somebody else, or priorities that don't give you the greatest results on your time. Are we good so far? Benny, how are we doing?
Doing amazing.
Mark, how are we doing?
You're good. It took me a while
Good?
to mute. Yeah.
So anything anybody else wants to add?
I mean, I think it's something Kobe Bryant always used to say, rest in peace, that he would work out 2 hours a day in the morning. And then he said, what if I got up 2 hours earlier and did an extra 2 hours? And then he calculated those extra 2 hours over the course of the year, how he would outwork everybody, because he knew no one was working those extra 2 hours. So he did the math, and that's why he was so much better than everybody else.
Thank you, Vinny, for that. So what did Kobe Bryant have?
Drive.
Purpose.
Purpose. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
He was more purposeful about his time than the next best player. Because they're all good, right? If you play in the I can't think.
NBA.
NBA, thank you. If you play in the NBA, it's you all are the master of the game, right? It's just Kobe figured out that 2 hours between, I don't know, whatever, 4 and 5 and 7, whatever the time he got up, right? 5 and 7 made him a small degree better than his competition. And here's the crazy part about that, Vinny. Sometimes all you need to do is a little bit more to be better than most. Isn't that crazy? That's deep. You agree with that? Vinny?
Yes, sir.
That's deep, right?
Uh-huh.
People think being better, you have to like change your entire self. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
All I need to do is introduce something to the way I do stuff to get me closer to doing it better than my competition. That's it. And I start to kill it, and it starts to translate to those quantum leap moves. I want to introduce you now. So, Mark, did I answer the question of what is important and what is not important in real estate?
Did you answer the question? Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure that in me standing up here, taking an hour out of your time, I'm addressing the questions you're asking me to address. So I'm going to always check for clarity's sake. Now, what I want to do is I want to introduce us to a 411. So now that you know that commitment to self-mastery will get you moving toward your goal, and once you truly understand what are your priorities and which one even take greater priorities than the rest, you start to even move closer toward that goal. Now what I want you to learn about is the 411. Who's in the audience wants to talk to me about what the 411 is? So 411 stands for 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. And what the 411 is about setting weekly goals that correspond to a larger monthly goal. 2 is to set monthly goals that correspond to larger annual goals. And make sure your weekly goals are success list, not a to-do list. Plan your weekly goals and activities no more than 1 week in advance to allow for a change in direction if needed. Set annual goals that can realistically be accomplished in a 12-month time period. And that's the key, realistically be accomplished in a 12-month period. Like, these are not dreams. These are goals that are attainable. Avoid revising goals set in prior weeks or months to reflect new goals or missed goals, for example. That's you must replace what you erased, right? That's what that is. Let's go to the next one because I want to get to the 411. So what you're looking at here, and this really delves deeper into what Mark was asking about, is truly creating a 411 action goal worksheet that gives you complete clarity on what you should be doing every day. In the example that I'm looking at, it's using Mike, the mega agent. And Mike, in his annual goal for his job, he wants to do 24 listings sold, 18 buyer sales, 60 qualified listings, or 60 quality listings, 60 quality listings, and he wants to go on 150 listing appointments. That's what Mike wants to do in his job. Mike, in his business, right, because you're in your job, but you're also working on your business. You agree with that? So part of working on his business, he wants to go on 76 buyer sales, 18 plus 58 from buyer sales transactions. Got it? So he wants to do 76 buyer sales. He wants to do 24 listings sold, 2 new projects that he wants to be part of. He wants to make $750,000 in GCI, and he wants to net profit $200,000 after he pays 100% of his expenses, including himself, as well as his taxes. Mike, in his personal finances, he's looking to monitor his real estate investments and or other investments. Also, he's looking to repay a loan that he's looking to enter into as part of his real estate investment journey. And on his personal, Mike is looking to read 1 or 2 books per month. He's looking to lose 15 pounds and stay healthy. He wants to complete a course in a conversational Spanish because he wants to learn another language. And also he wants to go on a minimum 1 date, 12 date nights per whatever period of time. Got it? Then you take that same annual goal for your job, your business, your personal finances, as well as your personal life, and you break it down to your monthly goals. Are you guys looking at this with me? Can you see it or not?
Yes,
Who said yes?
it's Maxine.
Thank you. So
I mean,
so then
I
you
can't
get
see
down to-
it's a little small for me. I can see the outline of it. I can't see
Can you see
the.
if you can enlarge it? I want to see if Jadani can enlarge it. I can't. Okay, we can't. So here's what I would like to do. If this was actually emailed as part of the material that was sent out during for the daily updates. If you put your email in the chat box, I'll have Jadani send you a completed sample 411. Is that cool? So in this case, when you start to break down your annual goal for a job to a monthly one, we know that Mike wants to go on 60 quality listings. Clearly, in order for him to hit the 60 listings per year, he needs to go on how many listing appointments per month? Who wants to read that? Look at my hand. How many listing appointments does Mike need to go on in order for him to go on 60 listing appointments for the year?
5.
5, right? And if Mike wants to have 24 listings sold, how many listings sold needs to happen on a monthly basis?
Looks like 2.
Thank you. And I'm going to skip that one. And if he wants to close 36 closings for the year, how many buyer contract closed?
3.
You get the point, right?
Like Jamal, but also people have to know their conversion rates to do. Mike knows his conversion rate, so that helps.
We're gonna
right?
get that. We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
This is the idea of truly developing a great 411 that becomes your default showing up, and or if you ever jaded in what needs to be done, this is what I need to focus on. You know what I'm saying? You're right. There are other metrics that we have to account for that's going to get us closer to our goal, which ultimately gives us the greatest return on our time. But the point of this exercise is to truly break down your goal from an annual to monthly to weekly to daily. Make sense?
Yes.
So now if I go to my weekly, then if my job is to go on, I don't know how many, here it says attend 5 listing appointments per week, right? So Mike needs to go on 5 listing appointments per week in order for him to close 24 listings sold, and to take on. So what it says here is 5 listing appointments per week is going to get him to take on 5 listings for the month. So that's 20 listing appointments for the week to get 5 listings. That's about,
I want you for sure.
yeah, that's about 25% conversion rate, Vinny. You see that?
Yep.
So that's what Vinny, you were talking about. Like you got to look at your conversion. I think you can do better conversions than this if you go on a lot less appointments. Like I say, 3 listings appointments a week. If you're qualifying your appointments, that which is another degree of really focusing on your highest priorities, you might find yourself going on less listing appointments and yet taking on more listings, right? And how does that happen, by the way? So since Vinny asked the question, well, I can work on me and what and how I say stuff, right? I can learn. I can take courses on better conversions for listing presentations. I can take. I can focus on role plays every day with a peer partner. That one day I'm a seller, my partner is a realtor, and the next day we reverse the role where they become the realtor, I become the seller. And that way we can give each other feedback on what can be said better in order for you to actually secure that listing appointment. There's so much more that can happen to be able to improve your conversion on a regular basis to get you to produce greater results on a daily basis. Make sense? And so on and on. So on the business side, because Mike is looking to interview and build a team, then he obviously needs to actually do 2 interviews on a weekly basis. That just shows you another example of what I need to do to focus on my business. The other one, you're focusing on your job. The second one is you're focusing on your business, because if you can't work on your business, you can't grow it. And that's the whole premise of this, is what do I need to do in order for me to drive the income that I need to be able to live, as well as what do I need to be doing on a regular basis to focus on growing my business and moving in the right direction. And the 2 are completely different. On another one, I gave an example of teaching as well as being a student as a mean to get you better at the game of real estate in order for you to produce greater results. And also Mike in his case on a weekly basis, he's going to work on materials for Investor Farm or so on. But the point is, or marketing, as Maxine was talking about before. So the question becomes, do I get to marketing first during the day, or do I get to conversation first during the day for the sake of ROI on time? Which one you believe?
First.
Which one?
Conversations first.
We all agree on that, right? We'll all agree on that. In focusing on conversation first, it's going to get us to move toward our goal much faster than focusing on anything else, right? Now, I can also challenge this. Well, I can pick who I'm speaking with, right? Remember, if I'm calling people that have positions of influence and I actually connect with them, what have I accomplished? What have I accomplished if my target audience is people with influence? That's a question that I'm looking for an answer.
Well, you're now reaching there. If you're speaking to a person with influence, and you make a real connection, you now are creating a core advocate of yours. So now you've reached into their sphere, which makes your sphere bigger.
You just said the key word, right? So I can focus on conversations, or I can and by the way, they're all important. Remember, they're all priorities on your daily task. Would you agree with that? It's like Maxine said, I'm gonna have 10 conversations every day. Well, who are you talking to, right? If my focus today is to focus on people that have positions of influence, then what I've done is I've opened up my core advocate pool. So now those individuals start to become my advocates in my real estate business. And they start to use their own influence to drive business to me. And that's less actual conversations that I need to have in order to go on 5 listing appointments on a weekly basis. Make sense? And that's the key. And that's and by the way, nothing is wrong and everything is right? So if you are in the mode of lead gen and you are disciplined enough to show up every day and start to have meaningful conversations in real estate, it really doesn't truly matter the amount of people you're talking to on a daily basis till you start to see your conversion reflect somewhere, right? Then you start to say, oh, you know what? I'm really getting good at this, and I have the exact same amount of time, and I can allocate the exact same time to target these groups of people, because these groups of people is going to give me the greatest return on the time that I've allotted. You see what I'm saying? But it's a transition. It's a transition. I can have one conversation, get one piece of business. I can have one conversation, get 5 pieces of business. You get my point? Same amount of time, but completely different results. But you got to get there, right? That's the point behind this. And you only get there when you truly start to understand what are your big rocks. Like what are they? Who are they, right? It can be what, it can be who, right? Like you got to ask yourself all these questions, or what positions you need to find yourself in to serve under to be able to produce greater results. Make sense? How are we doing so far, Vinny?
Good.
Are you getting a lot of? Give me some ahas. I'm gonna come to you, darling. Give me some ahas. Give me some ahas. Come on, guys. You don't want to learn for for killing time's sake, right?
It's just this is Laurel. For me, I found it's just a matter of breaking it down, because it all seems so overwhelming when you throw out the numbers, like I need to make this amount of money, but it's just to break it down on that weekly basis.
Thank you, Laurel. And you're absolutely right. The idea is, so you just answered the question by, like, you asked the question, answered the question, then asked, and right, which is powerful, right? Because you're right. It is overwhelming, right? And that's what we all suffer from, the same place, right? From saying, like, every day we show up. I'm sorry. We all have the same concern, right? So we come from the same place. We overwhelmed. So much is coming at us, and which one takes priority versus something else. And the idea is you want to start by having a big goal that's divided into monthly goals, divided into weekly activities. And then within your own weekly activities, you don't get busy dealing with nonsense before you focus on what is important. And whatever that is. And by the way, if relationship is important, like home relationship, then you focus on that. You move that up. Remember, you got 16 hours. What are you going to put in that 16 hours? Who's important, who's not, and who I want to allocate time to, and who I don't, right? So, who else? Who can give me another aha?
That was one of my ahas, what you just said. I realized that a lot of the stuff we learn in KW, it's not just for real estate. It can also be in family life and personal life.
Yep. No, it's so true, Vinny, and it's and it feels like, it feels liberating, by the way. You know that, Vinny, right? I think you start to feel a sense of relief, knowing what matters most and what I need to focus on, right? At least it's like almost like you don't operate from a point of deception. Like I don't show up and do work for the sake of doing work to get tired. Is I show up to focus on my greatest priorities and move them first before I do anything else. Right? Yeah. Anybody?
We talked about activities
Yep.
and vaccine and Tuesday having so many conversations. We hear this every time.
Yep.
Conversations for days.
Yeah.
Days after that. So I sent a text while I was sitting here with my just sold from yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And I got a call right away from a hopefully future client, maybe even an investor client. Right away, she called back and said she not only is interested in selling, but may need to buy something too.
Awesome. Right? One text.
One text.
Right? So and that's like, see, it's by the way, lead gen is so broad, right? And it sounds like only done if you cold call. Like it cracks me up when people like, oh, the state says I can't cold call. I'm like, when did you ever cold call? Right? And they're like, that's not the point. They're telling us what to do. It's like that this is like this, showing up for the sake of fighting versus showing up for the sake of accomplishing. And it changes who you are, right? When it's all about mindset, actually commitment to self-mastery was all about mindset, right? It's like how I see it. If this, do I have control over what the state did? Do you have control? But you don't. It's the governor, and the governor says you can't cold call. And they said that cold calling and guns are equal in her eye. Like, I'm not, politics or not, I'm not, that's not my fight, right? My fight is how do I show up and accomplish what I need to accomplish and what I need to focus on in order for me to move toward my goal. That's what I have control over. And if I show up from that frame of mind and have a clear definition of what is important and what is not, what is priority and what is not, and and all of my priorities, which one takes the highest priority, then I just start to show up from that frame of mind, right? And I don't have to cold call. All I need to do is go have conversations with people around real estate, right? You can go to a restaurant, you can give out business cards, you can network that way, you can serve on a board, you can actually send mass texts, you can create campaigns on social media platforms and engage with your target audience through IMs and so on. You can have a Twitter account that points to you as a real estate expert and a market leader in the area that you focus on. There's so much you can do within your own hand that can help you measure conversations. And that's the key. I think when Vinny gave us his feedback, I said, purpose, right? The Kobe Bryant, purpose. You have to have a purpose. And also Maxine, when she said 10 conversations, I said, you have to be able to measure. And that's the key, right? If you can't have purpose and you can't measure your action, your activities, then you're really not moving at your highest speed. Does it make sense? Those are the two pieces that make for a greater understanding of what takes the highest priority. And I hope by saying that, I just answered the question to all of you, because you're right. How do I know which one is more important than the other? You don't, right? The only time you're going to get there is by actually being purposeful about your action plan and being able to measure, right, everything that you do to say, you know what? Wow, this is an eye opener. I did this. I sent a text to how many people, Lisa?
I only sent it to 2 so
I sent text to 2 people and I got 1 respond with a buy and a sell. Anybody else? Any questions on the remarks? You good? No questions? Let's just go through because I want to finish the presentation. So so here's the cool part about this: Protect Your Time by Tom Blockin. And the truth is, the world does not know your purpose and priorities and isn't responsible for them. That's the greatest aha ever, right? You're the one that knows what's a priority and what's not for you, right? And so remember that as you actually show up every day toward working toward your goal. Next. So 4 keys to successful time block. 1, be consistent enough to set a habit. And that's the key. How many days does it take to form a habit? It's in this book. How many days you need to do something in order for it to become a habit in this book? 66 days. 66 days, right? It's in here. Research shown in this book talks about 66 days of doing something to be able to call it a habit. You have to be consistent at it for 66 days for you to say, you know what, well, I've developed a habit. So you wanna have a healthy body? Well, go to the gym for 66 days or more to be able to say, you know what, oh my God, I can't live without going to the gym, right? I'm missing something doesn't feel right. Be thoughtful and purposeful about the items you list on your calendar. Remember, purposeful is key. I would underline that because the key secret there is purpose. 3, always time block for the big rocks. What are your big rocks? Is your top 20. We gave a lot of examples of what that is, right? Even in conversations, relationships, there are certain relationships that produce greater results. Identify them and start to focus on that before you focus on anything else. And last, if you have to erase something, you have to make sure you replace it. So if you have a week and you're looking at your week at a glance past, and you're going to see whatever stuff that you said you're going to do, you didn't do, guess what's going to happen to that list? Lisa, it has to show up on the following list, right? So your next week, now it's going to include anything you've erased from the week before in order for you to move toward accomplishing your goal of whatever that number is. Next. Protect your time. Build a bunker, right? And I mean, build a bunker, right? Build a bunker, right? And by the way, a simple sign that says, hey, by the way, I'm focusing on my business right now and it doesn't, you don't have to be mean about it, right? Just, I'm working on my 20 right now, please come back. That can be a form of protecting your time block.
Put your earphones on while you're talking.
I love that. Pretend you're listening to something, people will leave you alone.
Or talk, use it to talk to your client.
Or use it to talk to somebody else. I thought you're going to just deceive people.
Well,
Store provisions. That's the key also. Remember, we're humans. The hardest part about this is to get over the 66-day period, right? And so what you want to do is almost help yourself develop a good habit. And storing provisions means that, oh my God, I just set myself up. I'm ready to start making calls or ready to build my business. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee, right? It's not about the coffee. It's just you're trying to get yourself out of focus, right? Your mind is resisting, right? So you say, listen, I'm going to have, I'm going to drink, I don't know, a cold cup of coffee that day. So it's going to be in my office. That way I know I'm not, once I sit, I'm not moving. Food, I'm hungry. I want to eat something. Make sure you have something around that actually you can snack on if that means that, oh my God, I'm hungry. Let me go figure out what I'm going to eat. There's so much you can do to help yourself. And by the way, it only happens for the first, 66 days, 90 days, right? The first 3 months of working through developing good habits is what you have to work on protecting your time block. Sweep for minds and enlist your support. Enlist your support means when you're doing it, you got to let people know what you're doing, right? And you got to hold, there was a joke, there was a guy within KW that was performing at a high level. And what he used to do is take his entire clothes off, just stays in boxers and gives it to his admin, says, don't give it to me until I have my 20 conversations a day. That shows you enlist support. That's enlisting support. So say, listen, I'm set out to do this lead gen. Do me a favor. Don't let me out of this office till I'm done. This is the number. When I have it, I call it a day. And again, this is operating at a very high level. Bold law says if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. That's right. And someone clapped. Give me the next slide. Okay, well, that's it. Give me ahas. So I just used the example of me of like making sure that between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. I actually book nothing. I really don't. I'm in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm actually working on my big rocks. Because I know once 11 o'clock comes, like, and my door is open. I never, like, people come in sometimes and I'm in the mood or the mode, and like, you have to come back because I'm doing something, right? Because I know if I don't do it, then I will never get it done. What else? Give me any ahas, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, you guys. Ahas. All right. There are none. I hope you found today's class very informative. If not, I just wasted your time, and I apologize for that. But I do believe that the amount of time that I put in to prepare for this class, I didn't. What I'll say is this: Janeska is doing the next class. So sorry. Janeska is moving from E to P. And I leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. How do you know that you're stuck? Right? Because that's the question, right? You reach a ceiling of achievement. All of us have. Like, I struggled to grow from time to time. And it means that what I know got me to what I was, and I needed to know more to move to the next level. That's all an achievement ceiling means, right? So what Janeska is going to cover is how to move from E to P. And the question is, how do you know that you're stuck? Well, being stuck at a certain level of production, right? If you find yourself every year for the last 3 years, you're at $6 million. You just can't break the $6 million production, or 15 million, or $25 million. Then you clearly have used everything you got to get to that level of production, right? It's something new has to be introduced, new knowledge or new people. Not having enough time for friends and family for months in a row, despite your best time of time management, right? Like, you do your effort, but you just never have enough time. Clearly, you need help, right? Another one is being stuck at a certain conversion rate for calls. So Vinny was talking about that before. There was a time we used to measure, I have 28 conversations. I'm not joking. This is how detailed we were. I've had 28 conversations. I went on 13 appointments. I got 3 listed appointments. That crazy, that granular. That's so if that's becomes the case, then you start to look back and say, you know what? Now, how do I drop? How do I improve my conversions from 28 conversations to perhaps 22 conversations? Like, that's how detailed you can get once you start to track your numbers. But the point behind this is some of the key signs of learning that you are stuck somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you join Janeska tomorrow at noon. And she will be covering E to P. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.